नहीं है, CT value depends on those gene. Different companies take different type of RNA segment, तो उनकी CT value differ करती है. CT value जो आता है, that just shows the concentration of viral load in throat, I mean nasal and nasopharyngeal, not at the site of infection.
So it doesn't have much. It doesn't have much prognostic value.
Not
Good. Thank you, Malak. Thank you. Thank you.
और दूसरी चीज आप पता एंटीजन डिटेक्शन. एंटीजन डिटेक्शन इज वेरी स्पेसिफिक. अगर ये पॉजिटिव है तो 99% ये पॉजिटिव है. ठीक, ये हो गया. और बताइए.
Only thing is I understood from all these tests is that they have less sensitivity, some 50%, 70%, 80%, but false positive are not common. So if you have any positive test, it is more likely that you have the disease. It's false
एंटीजन के लिए. एंटीजन के लिए अब सवाल आता है कभी कभी जो है आपका RT-PCR नेगेटिव आता है.
Malay will have to wind up here. Malay, sorry. We'll have to stop here. And now we go to Ranjana, and there is a lot of talk about biomarkers. So I just want to know in very brief, what are the common markers to be used in clinical practice, which are important and which have treatment value?
Am I audible now? Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Rajiv, for inviting me to talk on biomarkers. So biomarkers have always played a very important role in clinical decision making, and therefore it impacts the management of the patients as well. The goal is to identify the severity of the disease and have an objective value throughout the disease progression. Hence, categorizing the patients into mild, severe, or critical categories. So, and these lab biomarkers are faster and easier to obtain and preferred modality to monitor and predict the outcomes and prognosis of the disease. So quickly coming, most of it has already been elaborated by Manoj and also in part by Rajesh. So important ones that are to be done. But before going on to that, when is the best time to get tested? So as Manoj said that most of the mild COVID symptoms, they resolve by day 5. So if the disease is like that, it is after day 5, it is no more there and the patient becomes all right. There is really no relevance of having a biomarker testing done. But if the symptoms persist or there is a progression, so by day 5, a baseline biomarker testing should be done to know how the disease is progressing later on. So the first one is this complete blood count or a CBC, wherein we specifically look for the lymphocyte, absolute lymphocyte count and the platelets. So if there has been a lymphopenia or a thrombocytopenia, it would indicate the disease, that the disease is progressing. Then C-reactive protein, which is an acute phase reactant, if it is increasing or if it is on the higher side, if it is increased, then it would suggest that the disease is likely to progress. Then lactate dehydrogenase, that is a marker for tissue destruction. Extensive tissue destruction takes place with COVID infection in the lungs, and therefore the LDH rises. Ferritin, again a marker for hyperferritinemia, again signifies that it is an inflammatory response, and therefore the increase in ferritin also suggests that the disease is going to progress. So, but at this point of time, I must say that LDH and serum ferritin, if they are markedly raised, that is beyond thousands, then it would probably also suggest an impending, I don't know, my clinician or clinical colleagues will probably agree that this would suggest an impending secondary HLH-like situation, such that the patient may land up in ICU. Yes. So ferritin and LDH have to be closely watched. Another biomarker that needs a close watch is the D-dimer. D-dimer starts rising very early in the disease if it is going to progress, and that's because there is injury to the microvasculature of the lung, inducing microvascular thrombosis, such that the fibrinolytic pathway comes into action, and therefore a lot of D-dimers, the D-dimers are produced. So if we find increased D-dimers, it should prompt the clinician to start anticoagulation right away. Later in the course of disease, the prothrombin time, APTT, INR would also rise. Serum procalcitonin in mild to moderate disease, it does rise, but in a moderately severe patient, if it is markedly raised, then it would suggest a coexistent bacterial infection. IL-6, moderate to severe disease, the IL-6 rises as a cytokine, which is prominently induced during cytokine storm, and therefore IL-6 also needs to be closely watched. ESR, as far as ESR is there, then if ESR rises to some extent, but a raised ESR, if there has been a dramatic fall in the ESR, then it would suggest a hypofibrinogenemia, again suggesting towards a secondary HLH-like condition. So that was about the biomarker that I wanted to say, and yes, then
thank you. I think the only small comment I want to make here, that gradually we have realized that out of the 6-7 markers which we were routinely doing few months back, now the emphasis is on CRP and D-dimer, because rest all have, they are very non-specific, they don't guide us to the treatment. So from here onwards, we now move to the next question, and that's also very facing everybody, every day, every patient and every doctor. What is the value of radiological test, when to do CT, how to interpret, and how does it help in treatment? Anjana.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, as far as radiology is concerned, the modalities available to us are X-ray, ultrasound, and CT. And ultrasound, though it is sensitive for detecting changes of COVID, is not used very much by us, obviously because of the operator. Okay, so what remains is CT and X-ray. Now in the inpatient setting, what is routinely being done is, as soon as a patient is admitted, we are doing an HRCT. Not I mean as soon as admitted, but on the day of admission, probably the patient will get an HRCT. But that does not mean that we should not do an X-ray, because there are obvious advantages to doing X-rays of these patients. You see, number one, the X-ray can be done anywhere in the hospital at any time.
Anurag, mute karo.
Mute kar raha hu.
X-rays can be repeated as many times as required, and obviously they do give us a reasonable amount of information about the lungs. In our hospital, we have limited time actually for doing CTs of COVID patients. CT scans are being done after 5 p.m. So that's a limitation, and perhaps that is being followed in a lot of institutions. And the X-ray, initial X-ray also serves as a baseline, you know, for comparing subsequent X-rays. And sometimes when the patient is critical, we are unable to do a CT scan. And those patients will be treated just on the basis of the X-rays, and they'll be followed up with X-rays.
Good.
And
the vaccines, which vaccine, when it will be available, whatever information you have. 3 minutes.
I request for a little, okay, thank you Rajiv for giving me this opportunity, and I quickly go on to the slide flow. This is a very important webinar. I think our batchmates, I will just do the slide show. Okay. So we all know that 7 crore population infected, 16 lakhs death, India 99 lakhs, touching 1 crore deaths, 1.4 lakhs. Vaccines are the only way which we are thinking about. There is no Rambad as of now for the treatment part. I will revise in 1 minute or 30 seconds a little of immunology. We have 2 types of immunity, active immunity and passive immunity. Active immunity is vaccination, passive immunity is antibody administration, which we have been talking about convalescent plasma. But we have one more thing which is coming up soon, is Regeneron, which Donald Trump was given. And Mr. Donald Trump came out of the hospital in 3 days. Coming back to the vaccination, we have three types of vaccines, which is nucleic acid vaccine, DNA vaccines, RNA vaccine, and viral vector vaccines. I'm not talking about protein vaccine, but I'm talking of viral vaccine because we have one vaccine, which is Covaxin, which is inactivated vaccine. So the DNA vaccine is from Zydus Cadila. RNA, we all know Pfizer, which has applied for the emergency use authorization, and Moderna from USA. They have completed the phase 3 trial. Viral vector vaccine is AstraZeneca, Oxford. So a little one word, the status of these vaccines is only 3 vaccines have already completed the phase 3 trial, encoding the antigen of interest. What is antigen of interest? Spike protein or S protein. And this spike protein, and this is inoculated with the help of this DNA and the host antibody response. mRNA vaccine, Pfizer, Moderna. RNA vaccine consists of mRNA encoding the antigen of interest, and this antigen of interest is spike COVID virus 2 spike protein or S protein. And this is how the host body responds. The disadvantage of DNA and RNA vaccines, however, presents a small challenge. And what is that? These are the currently no approved DNA RNA vaccines. So that means the world does not have any major experience in the long run. It is unclear how effective they will be in the vaccinating population against COVID-19 or how quickly they can be sealed upon. Vector vaccine, why I'm talking about this, because AstraZeneca Oxford is a vector vaccine. They're using a chimpanzee virus. And from into this virus, the viral gene inserted into the harmless virus, and then this is inoculated. Coming on to the inactivated vaccine, the Covaxin from Bharat Biotech, collaborating with ICMR and Serum Institute of India, Mr. Poonawala is working hard on this. And this is what it is. It is an inactivated virus containing a whole pathogen that is killed or inactivated by chemical heat or radiation. And this is how it looks like. It's a dead coronavirus which is inoculated. Administration is mostly intramuscular, mostly 2 doses at an interval 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Live attenuated only 1 dose, but only 1 live attenuated vaccine, but none of them have gone into the clinical trials. So we have only DNA, RNA, viral vector, and of course inactivated vaccine which are being used. The pipeline, we all know preclinical studies, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, with being a lot of people, they know it. And DCGI in India and FDA in America is doing that. A lot of countries worldwide have participated in various vaccine trials, and 1,000 people have been inoculated. The vaccine pre-order, America is very smart and they have really pre-ordered a lot of vaccines, but India have only pre-ordered 32 million of AstraZeneca Oxford and 20 million of Pfizer vaccine. But of course, they are now growing up. How India is prepared? 5 vaccines which are likely to come. Pfizer, Covaxin from India, Oxford, AstraZeneca, Zydus Cadila, and Moderna. Pfizer, it has applied for emergency use authorization in India. DCGI yet to approve it. 1,000 pages publication has gone there. But it is already approved for emergency use authorization only in United Kingdom. It was first country for all practical purposes, although Chinese and Russian vaccine, they were already using it. USA became the second and first Asian country. Singapore has already approved the emergency use authorization. We are still waiting. It phase 3 trial concluded, 26,000 patients were there, 94% efficacy, no major side effects, 94%, very important. Second vaccine which we are depending upon is ICMR Bharat Biotech Covaxin. This is the first indigenous vaccine, very important, first indigenous vaccine. It is inactivated virus, Genome Valley, Hyderabad, where they're producing. Phase 1, 2 completed with 1,000, sorry for this, 1,000 patients. Efficacy at least 60%, they say 60 to 90%. Ongoing phase 3 trial with 26,000 volunteers. This is the same vaccine which was given to one of the Haryana minister. And when he got the next day corona, everybody thought, why it is like, this is not true because this is not inactivated virus. This will never lead to this. Likely to be available by January, but they have also applied for emergency use authorization to DCGI. Despite not having the result, but DCGI is still trying to look into the matter. Covishield is the third vaccine, which is a Serum Institute of India collaborating with Oxford University and AstraZeneca company. This is a viral vector vaccine, adenovirus from chimpanzee. Whether they have completed or not, because the results they have not yet, although some studies say they have got the results, but they are not yet out. This is Zydus Cadila with DNA-based technology. Zycovid is far behind, only they have completed this. In December, they are supposed to start the phase 3 clinical trials. I will give another 1 minute for the potential questions. If you have 3 vaccines, for example, whether you will have all of them or which one you would like to have it, Moderna vaccine. The answer is as soon as you are available, you do the vaccine. There's no need for waiting for the second vaccine to come. That may be better. No. If I take the vaccine, does that mean I can travel, roam around freely with no mask and do all the things I did pre-COVID? The answer is no. I repeat the question. If I take the vaccine,
that has already been answered. Well, that is going on WhatsApp.
Okay, if I already had COVID, I would have. If I already had COVID, you still have to take the vaccine. So I'm going to, okay, while in the interest of time, I'm skipping all the questions. Side effects, we have been answered. Vaccine, how long, this is important. How long after getting the vaccine will I get protection? 3 weeks, of 4 weeks, 1 week post the second dose. 1 week post the second dose, For Moderna, it is 4th week, so the 5th week post the first dose, 3 to 4 weeks, we can say safely for all the vaccines. How long will it last? This is an important question. This is very important. 6 months minimum. This is what Pfizer people are telling. But it can be 1 year also. We have to wait and watch. That means every year you will have influenza and COVID-19 vaccine. Coming on to the how India is prepared, transportation, they have ordered for
Vivek, we are done. Vivek, sorry.
I know. I was listening to this. So let me thank you at least.
Yeah.
Route, production cane, National Storage Center, Regional Storage Center, hospitals. I think it's only 4 minutes. And then centers.
No, it's much more.
Thank you very much. How to vaccinate 1 billion people? That's a challenge, and that challenge will be answered within few months or 1 year time. Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you. Stop sharing your screen, please. Yeah. Stop sharing your screen.
I've stopped sharing, already stopped.
Good, thank you. I think most of the information about vaccine is, as Vivek said, I think the only best take home message is whatever vaccine is available to you, first vaccine, go and get it.
And even if you're infected, you have to take vaccine.
Yeah. Thank you, Vivek.
Second point.
Okay. Now coming to the last and the most important part, I'll like to ask Sanjeev that, as a administrator of a very big organization, he must have seen a lot of challenges in last 10 months, right from beginning of pandemic. So like to hear his views that, as a administrator, as a policy maker, what challenges did he face and how did he overcome, and what is his take on this pandemic? Unmute yourself, Sanjeev. Sanjeev, unmute. Yeah.
Thank you, Rajiv. As Charu and everyone has said that, the most difficult was getting the infrastructure in place, number one, because the institution, as of now, we are running around 410 COVID beds with 150 ICU beds. So normally our ICU is not equipped to be of that big a size. So we had to change our wards into ICUs. Then we divided the ICUs where it will be ventilatory and HFNO, which will be non-ventilatory. That was thing, because then you had to get the ventilators and the HFNOs and everything in place, the oxygen supply in place. The second was now the human resource, because it's a tertiary center also. So that has been one thing which has been very difficult to get. Then don't have so many people trained in critical care to run. So then we had to do workshops for everybody else in the institution. We trained everyone in the institute on critical